What to expect when giving notice in England and Wales.
Welcome back to Bride Society. I'm Laura, this is Rebecca, and yes, today we are going to talk through a very important topic which can sometimes seem a bit daunting as you might not know what to expect, but it's giving notice, which means you can actually then go on and get married. So the video and the things we're going to talk about today only apply if both of you who are getting married are from the UK. So if one of you is from outside the UK, there'll be slightly different processes in place. So you'll just have to check that probably with your local registry office to see what you need to do, if there's any extra steps in order to be able to get married.
Yeah. It's just that we'd be here all day if we try to talk about everybody in one go.
Yeah, so today we're just talking about if you're both from the UK, and this everything we're talking about is applying to England and Wales. Yeah.
And if you're having an Anglican wedding, again, the process again will be slightly different, but for most others, it will be this. So there's caveats. In the description box, we will put links to the relevant pages on the government website, so you can double check the official guidance on these matters. And as what I say, if you're not all the things that we just said, there'll be notes for you on there as well as to where you need to go, what you need to do as well.
We also should say that we're filming this in March 2024, so also if you're now watching this way in the future, hello, but also just double check in case anything has changed since now.
Yes. Yeah. So the giving notice itself is about making sure that everything's good to go, basically, that you both are free and willing to get married, that no one's being coerced, that you are who you both say you are, and yeah, you're free to legally get married, so you're not still married to somebody else, etc., etc. So it's just a case of basically providing documentation to prove all of that, and that you do know each other. So as I said before, I know it can sound like a daunting process because it's very official and it's the word interview and all this kind of thing, and typically you're interviewed separately from one another and things. So I appreciate it can create a sort of feeling a bit anxious, but at the end of the day, as long as you are who you say you are and you've got your documentation there, which is we'll mention kind of what those things are, but you can check that off with the government website, so you've got everything prepped ready to go. But yeah, as long as you are all those things, you should be absolutely fine.
Yeah, and as Rebecca says, it is a process of going for an interview to speak to someone in the registry office just to confirm all that. So there's a couple of rules and just to be aware of about giving notice. You need to give notice at least 29 days before your wedding ceremony. So you need to make sure you've got that appointment booked in at least 29 days before you're planning to get married, to give everything enough time to go through officially. But then also you can't do it too far in advance. So it has to be within a year of your intended wedding date. Within 12 months, otherwise you'll have to go through the process again.
Yeah, and as to where you go and do that, as say, it's your local registry office, the one within the district that you live in. If you and your partner aren't currently living together for whatever reason, you'll give notice separately in those separate registration districts. So if you do live together, you'll do it at the same registry office. You can book the appointment and both go together, but you'll still be interviewed or asked questions separately. Because they need to make sure that, your answers match, and so that they can obviously get a sense of whether you're being coerced or not. And you need to have lived in your registration districts for at least 7 days before the giving notice. So actually you have to have lived there. But you don't then have to get married in that registration district. This is where it can get quite confusing.
Yeah, so I live in England but got married in Wales, but I gave notice in England and did all the official stuff there, but they talked to each other, so it was fine.
Yeah. You'll notice that I won't give many examples of mine because I didn't marry a UK citizen, so as we said before, this won't apply, so ignore me.
So once you're ready to go ahead and make your appointment to give notice, the one thing you have to do before you have your interview is actually make sure your venue is booked so you have your wedding date. That is one thing they will ask you as part of the interview process. So just make sure you've got everything confirmed with the venue and your wedding date before you go along. You also need to bring some original documents to prove some things as well, and make sure they are originals as they won't accept copies.
Yeah, so those are things like your passport, valid passport, any proof of a change of name if you've changed your name for any reason, so like a copy of a deed poll document, and proof of your home address. So there is a list again on the government website, which is linked in the description box below, about all the different types of things that could be, but things like a valid UK driver's license would do that, gas, electricity bill, those kind of things that have your name and address that obviously match. Yeah.
And if you've been in a civil partnership before, if you've been married before, you will need to bring along documents of either your decree absolute or final order, or if you've gone through a bereavement, you'll need the death certificate of your partner. This just ensures that you're legally free and able to marry again. If you have divorced or had a dissolution of a marriage or civil partnership outside of the UK, there will be a charge for the local UK registry office to kind of deal with all those documents as well. And at the moment, if it's your local registry office, it's like a £50 charge, or it might be slightly more depending if it needs to go higher up for those documents to be checked.
Yeah. And then 28 days after you've done all of this stuff, the registrar will issue your schedule, which I think is a really odd term for it. It is a change that's come in the last few years. And then your registrar, if you're having a civil ceremony, will bring that to your wedding, so you don't need to worry about that whole part. But yeah, it's just making sure, I say, that all your information is correct at this point, because it's much harder to deal with it on your wedding day if any of the information isn't right.
And really importantly, do bear in mind that this is a legal document, and if you lie or make any false statements, it is actually a criminal offence. So just don't do that. So
in terms of what to expect from the interview kind of section itself, because again, I know that might be where there's some anxiety where that lays. To give you sort of a rough idea about the types of questions they might ask you, as I say, this would be separate from your partner, would be things like obviously you verifying both of your full names, your date of births, your addresses, especially if that's obviously separate, your occupations. What else is there?
Whether you're related.
Oh yeah, that one.
That's the important one. And
at least here they don't make you do a blood test like they do in Mexico. Not as painful.
They might also ask about your parents' names and their occupations. And this is also a slight change in recent years, where it always used to be just a father's name and occupation that they asked about, but it's more inclusive now, so mums can be included, and on the schedule even step-parents can now be, their names can also be added to that as well, so it reflects more everybody kind of potentially that's involved in your life. But yes, they just want to make sure that your answers match each other.
Yeah, and as closely as possible, particularly when it comes to job titles. And I think particularly if you're not kind of giving notice on the same day back to back, I think if you're giving sort of separate districts and it's just literally being entered into the computer, it can kind of flag as a difference. So if you just try to make sure that you get the exact, you agree at least on what the title will be. I know that can be difficult when you kind of have a bit of a job that's not a straightforward cardiac surgeon or something like it's, but try to, that if you're going to study beforehand,
But as I say, they're not there to trip you up. They're not there to try and prevent you from getting married. It's just a formality that you have to go through. They just want to ensure that you're not being coerced into getting married. There aren't any red flags raised, that you're both legal. And yes, it's just a process that everybody has to go through, with a few exceptions. So it's nothing to worry about.
No. And then all that happens is that this is then open for, is it like a month?
28
well,
days.
The 29 days for the people to come and raise objections to the union. I'd be interested to know the statistics on how often that actually happens, because I've never heard it happen. No. But anyway, it's similar to, you know, in church when if you've heard people have their banns being read like out in the church each week to give people the opportunity to raise objections. So yeah, again, it's just another sort of formality step, but that's all that is.
And unfortunately, there is a cost to doing this, as with lots of things to do with weddings, but it's one you can't avoid if you want a registrar conducting the ceremony. So for example, we're giving York as an example here as fees as of March 2024. It's from £35 per person to go through the giving notice process.
Yeah, 48 if you want to do it on a weekend, on a Saturday. So yeah, plan your time off work wisely. But yeah, so that is just an example. It does vary district to district and up and down the country. So yeah, do check that. Information will be on your local council's website.
So we hope you found that helpful, and hopefully it's allayed any fears you had about going through the giving notice process. If you do have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. As we said, we'll link all the kind of government official guidance in the description box below for you, so you can go and have a read through that at your leisure.
Just some light bedtime reading.
Give this video a like, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.